State. Let's get the assessment of our good friend Pete Hoekstra, who joins us this morning from Washington. Pete, of course, the former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Quickly, your take. The reports, I imagine, are still unconfirmed, Pete?
Yeah, and the sources that I have talked to in the intelligence community and in Congress have indicated that they're very suspicious about these claims by the Iraqi government, that the Iraqis may have hit a meeting where Baghdadi, that he was participating in. The other thing I think here is that this will not be a game changer, even if we did get al-Baghdadi. ISIS has and gets its strength from the former Baathists and from the former military officials that were part of Saddam's regime. Remember, they were Shias. Under President Bush, we went through a program of de-Baathification. We totally stood down the military. These folks have now found a home in ISIS, and they have the skills, the bureaucratic skills, and the military skills to continue to have this be a military power, even if they were decapitated.
Are there any portions of this Iraqi account that ring true? For example, we understand from our own intelligence that we indeed had targeted a convoy of these ISIS leaders. Is that part of the intelligence accurate as you understand it?
As I understand it, and that would not surprise me, that we would have the information that indicated that ISIS leaders were moving from point A to point B. We might have actually had the time, but we may not have known exactly who was in the convoy. So I'm not surprised with that level of information, with that kind of insight into ISIS, knowing that there was travel or there was a meeting of leadership and not knowing exactly who would be there.
Pete, let's talk about something else that transpired in the time between you and I have had a chance to visit here, and that is the fact that our president announced he's sending an additional 1,500 troops to train and guide Iraqi security forces. Is this a surge by another name?
It's not a surge at this point. Going up and adding another 1,500 troops, getting up to 3,000, that is not the kind of surge that moves us from being on defense to moves the coalition to being on offense. You know, members of Congress have traveled to Baghdad. They've met with their defense ministers. They've met with other folks in the government. And from the feedback that I'm getting, that this government and this military is not yet ready for prime time. They're not ready to go on offense. Remember, the key word here is they're being sent primarily for training an Iraqi army that we thought we had trained 4, 5, 6 years ago.
Pete, as you and I get together on this Monday morning here in the United States, it's Monday evening in China. The president has had basically a full day of talks under his belt. The Chinese have not exactly given the president a warm reception. Your take on American-Chinese relations at this point? We have about a minute 15 remaining.
Well, I think the relations are okay. I mean, there are issues between the United States and China. I think what's happening now and what's going to happen over the coming days is that our Asian partners, as our other partners around the world, are going to take a measure of this president. They haven't been that impressed by this president through the first 6 years of his term. They're now going to take a look at, hey, what's possible over the next 2 years after the drubbing that he and his party took, last week.
And we have about 30 seconds for your take. Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel unhappy about the U.S. and this president continuing dialogue with Iran. He says again, Israel's not going to stand for a nuclear Iran. In the 25 seconds left, do you expect Israel to act alone?
I don't expect Israel to act alone, but remember, the other part of this is not only the nuclear program, it's also we're negotiating with a Shia. ISIS is Sunni. This just brings more fighters to join ISIS as we negotiate with Iran.
Peter Hoekstra, we thank you for your time. Stay tuned. There's more ahead on America's Forum.